Crouse.
Congratulations on the film.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about Hilly, because I think that probably everyone has known someone like Hilly, and I mean, I'm not necessarily even thinking that we've known someone who is as overtly racist as Hilly is, but we've all known someone who has really wrong-headed ideas but believes with all their heart that they are right. So tell me a little bit about Hilly and about making her a real person, because if we don't believe in her, the movie's not going to work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I had a bit of a journey with that myself, because when I read the book, she's the character that you love to hate, and I was really excited to play her, and then I got to Mississippi, and we were doing rehearsals, and I realized, oh my gosh, I can't play the kind of Cruella de Vil version of this woman. I mean, this is a character that's based on not just several women at that time, the majority of women, and that if I didn't get into her psychology, that I was not really portraying the devastating honesty of the people at that time, and so I had to kind of get how she ticked, and I guess there were a few layers to her. I mean, there's like the Queen Bee version of Hilly, and that's, I think, the Hilly that we all know. Like we all have seen the sort of power hungry women who have kind of a duplicitous nature to them. I mean, that's definitely a huge aspect of Hilly, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. If not for themselves, they've experienced that.
Especially in high school. I mean, I thought of Mean Girls often when I was watching this.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, I have your same shoes, by the way. Same exact shoes.
You're so comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I mean, she's an adult woman, but she's still behaving as if she's in high school. And I think that at that time, socially, that was something that was because women didn't have that much power at that time. That dynamic was very present, because that was the way in which women kept control in the society. Whereas now, it's a bit different, and those kinds of women don't need to act out in that sort of way. But then I think, there's obviously, well, I don't think this, you know this when you read the book or you see the movie. I mean, she's prejudiced, and she's a deeply ignorant individual. And I personally believe that she, in any time, would have a cruel nature and be oppressive and be power hungry. But I feel like the fact that she lived in this particular time and it was socially acceptable to be prejudiced in the way that she is, that she's outwardly that way, and she thinks that it's right.
But you can't judge her, though, as an actor. You can't go in going, oh, I'm playing a horrible person, because then you miss part of the humanity of the character. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, and I think they say that for a reason, and I didn't listen, and I did judge her, and it was really hard for me. I mean, it was really, really, really hard for me to create a real human being for a very long time. And it wasn't until kind of right before shooting did a few things kind of piece together in my head that made me say, oh, man, this is why she's this way. And okay, I can play that. I can play that person.
Was shooting, because you shot in Mississippi, right? Mm-hmm. Was shooting down there, did that add to it? I mean, you must have, you could theoretically have met people still hanging on to those sort of ideas. And I know that's stereotyping an entire state and place, but it must have added something, knowing that of the history of the state and where you were. Did it deepen it at all for you? It
really did, because it's we shot in Greenwood, Mississippi, which happens to be a really well preserved town. Their economy is doing very well. The Viking stove is made there, so everyone who lives there works at Viking, and so they're doing quite well, and a lot. They've invested quite a bit in preserving the town, and so when you're there, just the actual aesthetics of what you're surrounded by is so kind of out of the ordinary because you really feel like you're walking around in the 1960s. I mean, it's the houses look exactly the way that they did back then, and the main street, and it's to the eye, it's really beautiful, and I think that was captured in the film. But it's also because, you know, in the context of making this movie and shooting there, it was eerie because it felt like, while the people there were so great and embraced us and were wonderful, just aesthetically, you felt like you were in a place where nothing had changed. And then, of course, if you know the history of that area, I mean, Greenwood, Mississippi in particular, was really the hotbed of the civil rights movement. I mean, it's where the White Citizens Council was. I mean, Emmett Till was a young boy who was murdered by a group of white men, which was kind of in a way the beginning of the civil rights movement. I mean, and his body was found in the Tallahatchie River. That was really, I mean, that was there, and it was, I mean, you couldn't forget that, and it made everything extremely real to all of us. I mean, if we were shooting in a soundstage in Los Angeles, this would have been a completely different movie.
Right. Where you can go home and sleep in your own bed afterwards, and the whole thing. It is a much different thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think this one of the problems actually, culturally, I think in my country is because I'm in Canada, is that we it's such a it's the disease of our nation. You know, racism is the disease of our nation, and we have such a devastating history with, particularly with racism and prejudice and oppression, that you don't want to kind of. It's not that we don't want to admit to it, but we're so desperately trying to move on, but we have to remind ourselves how close we are to it, and that this was just my parents' generation. I mean, that was so recent, and it's. On the one hand, it's great to think, you know, how far we've come, but we have to remind ourselves that we are still very, very close to it and can easily slip back into that mentality. And I think if we were shooting in another place, it would have been easier to escape at night or, you know, in between takes. Whereas shooting there, we couldn't escape what the movie was about.
Right. That's interesting. I think it's. In a lot of ways, new German cinema has finally started to reconcile their recent history by making movies that sort of directly reflect what happened in their history. Whereas for a very long time, they just didn't. Right. They decided, you know, we're going to leave that part of our history alone. And I guess that's what we're talking about. Documentaries have always been made, but it is important, I think, to cast a light back and remember. Yeah, because it wasn't that long ago. I remember, I'm 48, and I remember when I was very little seeing things on television that I didn't understand, marches and things that I didn't understand. You know? Yeah,
I mean, it's really crazy to think about. I remember asking my parents when I was younger, when I was learning in school about segregation, and I said, how old was Grandma and Granddad when that was happening? And they said, oh no, we were around. Did you not? I was like, what? You know, you were around, you were alive and a person when segregation was allowed, was a law. I mean, it blows my mind. I mean, and I think I have a 4.5-year-old son, and I'm pregnant now, and I think about the things that my children will grow up and say, I can't believe that this was an issue. You know, I can't believe that was being fought when you were around, Mom. And my prayer for myself is that I'm on the right side of history. You know, that I can say, well, I did something and I contributed to the evolution of my country.
Richard Crouse.